From First Paw Media, sponsored by First Paw Coffee Company, this is the Dog Driver Show. Visit our website at dogworksradio.com. Now here are your hosts, Robert Forto and Parto.
Hello and welcome everybody. This is Robert and I'm here with my co-host KP and we are the Dog Driver Show, and today we have a special guest calling in from Australia. Her name is Zahra Goldsmith. KP, what do you know about Zahra?
I know Zahra through Facebook, actually, because we haven't had the opportunity to meet personally or race together yet. She's fairly new in this sport, I believe 5 years or so. She is part of the our Aussie connections that we have. We've interviewed several of them in our show in the past. As we did Annie Jackson, I believe, and Clint, and now it's Zahra's turn. Zahra, good morning to you, and give us a little bit of background about what you're all about and how you started in this sport.
Hi, thank you for having me. So I started with a backyard bred Siberian Husky, as a lot of people do, and it kind of snowballed within the first year. With my then partner, who was also in the sport. And we ended up getting 4 dogs within the first year, and they were all Huskies, Alaskan Huskies. And the year after that, I turned my eye more to hounds, which do a bit better with our climate. And I kind of got hooked, even just on my own, when we went our own separate ways. So that's where I've kind of led myself to be. I haven't really had too much of a successful racing career to date yet in terms of dog health. Each year there's always been a dog sick or a dog's injured itself, so I've had to kind of put racing on the back burner for one reason or another. But we've always had sorry, I might have to say that one again. We've always had excellent training seasons, but we've always had excellent training seasons. Just when it comes to the actual racing side of things, it's not always easy to get down there because our state forests are often they're about 6 hours travel for some people in some instances. But I've since moved to South Australia, as I mentioned at the start, so I'm only about 30 minutes from the forest now, so it's been a lot better this year. But of course I did litter, so we had to put racing on the back burner again amongst COVID and other things. We're all about
So when you're talking about Southern Australia, I'm assuming that it's cooler since it's reverse than us, correct? Is Southern Australia cooler than the Northern Australia part?
Yeah, it is definitely cooler during winter, but then again it's more extreme and hotter in summer, so it does have its downfall. And
can you train directly from where you are, or you have to travel? And I heard you were talking about some people, they travel 6 to 7 hours just to train? Wow.
Yeah, back over where I used to live on the eastern coast of Australia, that's definitely the case for a lot of people, which sucks. So people usually make a whole weekend out of it, as you would, but that leaves training reserved for certain weekends only. We have to travel about 30 minutes to the forest now, so that's very doable most mornings if we wanted to.
And when you are training in Australia, you're allowed to use motorized vehicles, or no, you train with scooters and carts and stuff like that?
We can now in South Australia. It's always been legal in the forests here, but we personally don't. We don't really have many dogs, so we just use the scooters and bikes. But in the other states, the eastern states, you can't use them.
And as we discussed, Robert, if you recall, a lot of our guests from in that area, they mentioned that importing dogs or having different bloodlines were extremely challenging because of the cost of importing a dog from Alaska, from Canada, or from Europe to your country. Is that correct?
Yeah, it definitely can be. We have just gone through the process ourselves and learnt that if we just were patient and planned well ahead in time, we could wait for a joint shipment with other people importing from that country, so that brought the price down quite a lot. But it was still end figures up in the $5,000-6,000 mark, Australian dollar. So it was quite expensive, but if you've got the savings there, it's not too bad, I guess.
To do that, and I noticed at least in the pictures of the dogs that you've been posting, the new dogs, the new style dogs that you have are more of the Euro Hound and the typical Houndies for the sprint racing. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. We put our GSP bitch over a Czech Republic Eurohound that we found over there that we quite liked and complimented our girl, so it's turned out well for us. We're yet to race them, obviously, but they look good so far.
They are little ones, huh? And how many dogs do you have in your yard right now, Zahra?
We've got 6 now. We've just sent the last puppy off to a new home, so we've just got our final 6, the 2 pups and 4 adult dogs.
Robert, what I love about our show is like the last show we had, we were talking about an open driver, and he was talking about his small kennel of 45 for open class, and everything has a perspective. Zahra is talking about a big kennel of 6 in Australia. So
yes, of course.
It is so interesting to listen and to look at all the different aspects of our sports. Zahra, tell us a little bit of background behind the dogs you have, the bloodlines that you have. You mentioned that you imported semen from a male from Czechoslovakia, and what about the rest of the stuff you have?
Yeah, so we're lucky enough to have one of the Alaskan Huskies bred here in Australia by Don and Ann McIntyre. So they've got some nice lines from Canada, some old stuff that they've been using over the years, mixing with their own Siberians here in Australia. But they had to liquidate their kennel. They've got some health problems, unfortunately, but very nice dogs out of them. So we've got one girl out of that crop, and she's been I'd say, backbone of teaching all of our other dogs everything they know, as she was one of their 8-dog open team dogs. We've got the 2 GSPs, which are from an agility breeder. She was a registered breeder, so that was a good peace of mind getting them. And they've slotted right into racing well, which was my hope. And I also, of course, have my backyard bred husky that started it all, but she's not too interested in running these days. She'd rather go for a sniff and a wander, so that's what she gets to do.
And training-wise, when you and your husband, you train, do you train like with a specific schedule? I know that you're a mom, so how do you fit your little boy, the dogs, work, house chores, and everything all together?
Yeah, that's been challenging since having the little one. We don't really plan it around him so much anymore now that he's a toddler, so come winter we can just load the car up, bundle everyone in and head off in the mornings that we desire to go and train them, which is maybe 3 times a week ideally during the colder seasons. That's what we were doing before we lined our girl for this litter, and they were getting quite fit, but no race season to show off all the hard work we'd been doing, but that's okay. We'll get back there again next year.
So I know that I personally know Clint Graham, who is also from Australia, and he actually came to Alaska to learn and to watch and to see a lot of stuff that we do here, and to implement the same techniques and regiments with his team in Australia, and he was extremely successful up there. Do you reach out to people from like Scandinavia, Canada, Alaska, and other countries to learn more about the sport, or is usually like trial and error to see if it's going to work or not?
Yeah, it's a bit of both, I guess. It's a bit hit and miss contacting the mushers in Australia, because it's always been a bit of a cliquey, keep to yourself kind of environment here. But in saying that, some of the big kennels that we've got here, like Clint and Mandy Graham, for example, massive respect to them. They're quite happy to answer any questions that you've got. So we have chatted to them quite a bit. They got one of our pups recently, so they'll have fun with her. But yeah, I've personally messaged quite a few people politely overseas, just asking, hi, I saw this. How do you do this? Or would you mind explaining what the purpose of that was? Everyone I've ever spoken to on another continent has been more than forthcoming with their information. So that's been really good to have.
And in Australia, I'm assuming the snow racing is fairly unusual, and you're focusing mainly on the dryland events. Do you believe that in your neck of the woods, monosports and your canicross and scooter and bike tour are having more impact than your typical 4, 6, 8 dog class?
Yes, I would say that. And it's the unfortunate part of our climate is there's just no real room for people to successfully train at a higher level with a bigger team here, because before they start getting some traction and some fitness on them, the season's over. They didn't really get to showcase what they could do in the first instance, or not for long at least. But we do have snow races, and they usually do operate, but they're quite technical, quite windy. The hound teams that do go down are quite game to be taking them on, but they have a lot of fun down there because it's a bit of novelty for us. I'd definitely say the mono classes are where we're going to get our newcomers, our new entries, and our new people that keep the sport going forward, because it's just that's the footwell entry for people getting hooked and then carrying on, maybe getting an actual sled dog once they've been in the sport for a little bit. So most of the clubs that have big programs to encourage newcomers or junior development programs are really targeting those active fit dog people, normal people that would just come and have a dabble with their one dog on their bike or something like that. So that's where the money is to be made, and the sport will continue for us.
You mentioned the money to be made. Here in Alaska, we race for money, basically. If there is not a purse for a race, a lot of people, they don't go to. You kind of expect making, $1,000 or $500 or whatever at a race that you're going to be engaging. What about you guys? Do you have big money and purses?
Yeah, I guess that was a kind of a sarcastic comment because we don't make money. We just have non-for-profit clubs here, and they don't turn a profit, obviously. They just put the money straight back into the club or into a program that they're trying to get off the ground. And yeah, no money. There's a bit of a purse at the snow races, but it's very minuscule in comparison to any of those ones you were just mentioning.
Zahra, we talked about money, and what about cost? How much does it cost? I mean, how much does it cost, not you, just anybody, to feed sled dogs, to take them to the races, dog boxes, sleds, scooters, and all of that? I know that in Alaska, our cost here is quite a bit more than the lower 48 of the United States. Yep. What about you guys? Like, how much is a bag of dog food, or how much does it cost to go to a race?
It's not quite as large scale as you guys, but I'd say that just the general costs, if you're going to do it well, it's probably going to be the same as what you'd spend if you only had a few dogs yourself. So the high quality food that if people choose to feed, it's probably around 100 to 130 a bag, and then meat on top of that. A lot of people do the mix, which we do. Scooters, they're not too bad. If you get a second-hand one just starting, they're pretty cheap. There's not too many high-performance scooters here, just knockabout ones. Dog trailers, there's not too many people with insulated, warm kind of looking dog trailers. They're all just the Greyhound ones that they've repurposed and rebought and just chuck some hay into the box to make it a little bit nicer for the dogs. So I guess the things we've got here, they're kind of multi-purpose because they need to be usable during summer as well. So yeah, it's really not expensive in comparison to the grand scheme of equipment that you'd either have available or would need in your climate over there.
And are there lots of clubs and lots of events in your area?
In my current area, yes. There's generally, I'm going to say 5 to 10 races in my state now. In a good year, not in a COVID pandemic year. But in the eastern states, one state could have one race for the year if you're unlucky and if the club's not doing too well that year. So it's a bit difficult over there where it's a bit more humid. They don't get the attendance.
That's pretty interesting. I was not expecting to hear like 5 to 10 races a year in that area with that climate. Very interesting. Zahra, any plans for coming over to Europe, to lower 48 of the United States or Alaska to race or to see what's going on up the other side of the world?
Yes, definitely. My husband my fiance rather, has been to Bristol himself with Clint and the McIntyres and had a taste of what your country, or kind of what America's like. But he fell in love with Canada for sure, so he wants to take me back to see the dog scene, and I want to take him to Europe. Definitely would love to. Sorry, repeat that one.
Zahra, that's okay. I have a couple of questions. As you're talking, a couple of points came to mind. My first question is, do you guys have any restrictions in terms of quarantine or anything like that with dogs that are traveling between the states or requirements? You know, when you race in Europe, there may be restrictions. Do you guys have any of those there?
We have been one of our states has been on total lockdown for quite a while now. They've had some issues containing, so there's no movement going on with them. And that's one of the biggest states we have for mushing, so that's been a shame. But the vast majority now are quite open, and we've been seeing some clubs holding some fun events, even some proper races. So that's been good. That's been lucky because we've been able to do that properly and carefully and had no issues with COVID.
And my next question, Zahra, is what is the public perception of dog-powered sports there? You know, of course, here in Alaska, everybody knows about the Iditarod and sled dogs, and it's part of our culture. How is it perceived there in Australia?
Yeah, flip side of the coin.
Okay.
Again, it's very niche here, so when you mention it to the normal person having a chat to you, they're like, what? No way. What, you jump on a sled and hop and go and sled down your driveway? It's like, no.
Right.
You have to explain it, spoon feed it to them, and then they're usually amazed, usually want to come out and have a look and see what it's all about. And that's the good part, because you do snag a few people that way.
Very good. Before I ask the last question that I ask all of our guests, I want to turn it over to KP. Anything else for Zahra?
No, I enjoyed listening to her enthusiasm about the sport. It's always fun to talk to people who are newer in the sport and fight adversity, like in their situations, the climate, obviously, and sometimes we don't remember that how lucky we are having this opportunity in our beautiful state of Alaska to have dog trails right next door and be on a sled for 4, 5, 6 months a year if we want to. It was always interesting.
So, Zahra, I ask our guests the same question, and I'd love to hear the different points of view, and that is, if somebody were to come up to you and they're just getting started in the sport, whether they're doing canicross or they want to do Iditarod someday, what is one piece of advice that you would give them if they're brand new to the sport?
One piece of advice. It's like looking back through a time portal thinking, what would I say to myself?
Right.
I guess I would tell them, continue running, even if it gets too much with the politics. Take a step back, continue training, because it's still going to be that enjoyable connection that you found with your dog, and getting out and getting fit and watching them achieve their potential. So if you need to take a step back, that's okay too, but push on don't just drop it. You're going to still enjoy it for many years to come.
Very good. That's good advice, and I think with the little one coming up, you need to pass it on to the next generation. You think?
Yeah, I think he'll be keen. He loves anything with wheels, so we'll get him hooked on the rig and hooked on the scooter, and off we go.
Very good, very good. KP, anything before we go?
No, Zahra, thank you so much for spending the last 20-some minutes with us. I really enjoyed chatting with you, and keep in touch. Good luck with your training and racing season, and we'll be following your training and your puppies for the upcoming years and months.
Thank you. On behalf of our guest today, Zahra Goldsmith, this is Robert and KP for the Dog Driver Show. Be sure to check us out next time. We'll see you then. Goodbye.
From First Paw Media, this is the Dog Driver Show. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, and we invite you to subscribe in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll find a link on the episode notes. You can tap or swipe on the episode cover art, and you can see some offers from our sponsors. You can support our show by supporting them. If you like what you have heard, we would love it if you could give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe too. Your hosts are Robert Forto and Parto. Our producer is Robert Forto and created for First Paw Media.